Hey, welcome to Sidewalk, Skyline podcast. If this is your first time listening, this is a podcast that talks to people and listens to stories across Canada of what God is doing in our Canadian cities. We began this podcast on January 1st, 2020, and since that time we're averaging around 1,800 RSS subscribers, and from those who are mostly listeners, but some watch our sessions on YouTube as well, 80% are from Canada, all across the nation. 16% of our listeners are from US, and then the other 4% is made up of listeners from all over the world. Ireland is number 3 for some reason, and so hats off and hello to Ireland, and would love to hear what God's doing in the streets of your cities as well. As we go to our episode today, this is part 2 of our interview with Chris Chase. And if you haven't heard part 1, I would recommend that you go back and listen to part 1 first, just so that you have a little more familiarity with who I'm talking to. On today's episode with Chris, we get into a great discussion about how polarized our world is at this time. You know, people are very frustrated and angry and taking sides on politics, race issues, religion, the whole restrictions on the pandemic, many things that people are very polarized about. So the question that Chris and I explore is, how do we create a table of conversation that focuses on understanding, wisdom, and solutions? That's something that a lot of people need. Maybe it's something you need. So I hope that the thoughts that we share together today will give you some rich food for thought at our table of conversation. So I remember when I lived in this old farmhouse just outside Windsor, when my wife and I, and at that time our 2 little babies, later to have 3, but we lived in this old farmhouse outside of the city while we were church planting. And I remember there was one night when we would have people come out to our place. We were sitting on about an acre, and so we could have these nice backyard bonfires. Mm-hmm. And so it was a night where we were going to have a bunch of people over and have like some kumbaya with the guitar around the campfire and a bit of Bible study, and the sky looked kind of menacing, so we decided that night, let's have it indoors. And sure enough, it turned into a full-blown thunderstorm and heavy rain, and so we were glad we had moved indoors. So then it was nighttime, and everybody got in their cars, went home. Next day I went outside, and I discovered that place where we would have been having our campfire, there was this mature tree that got split right down the middle by lightning. And I think it just kind of brought home to me the power of lightning to absolutely split things apart and destroy things and take lives. In old farms, you'll find up on top of a house or a barn this metal spire that sticks up called a lightning rod. Mm. And so lightning rods are able to take that incredible tree-splitting power and focus the lightning. It'll go to that point, because at that point it's attracted to the highest point, and it hits that, and then it travels through that circuit and is diffused into the ground. Lightning rods have an important role, and I want to talk a bit about the Christian calling to be a lightning rod in our culture, to be a lightning rod in our society that's able to take these devastating forces and embrace that and diffuse that. That's a kind of reconciliation, which is a great intro for the House of Commons show.
Hey, well played, good
that?
sir.
Yeah, you like
well,
that?
that's. Oh, technically we shouldn't be high fiving because of COVID. So we should
that's right.
We should be.
We'll get the sanitizer.
Well, sanitize your hands, and then
Okay.
afterwards we'll clap afterwards.
I'm not going to lick this can until I have a chance to sanitize it. Talk about the lightning rod that you're involved in.
Yeah, I love the illustration. We just to kind of piggyback on that story really quickly. Just recently, there was a lightning storm in our neighborhood, and we had a gigantic tree on someone's lawn that split into the road and cut the road off. That if it had turned just a centimeter the opposite way, would have destroyed their fence and their cars. And so my son, who's 8 years old, who never goes outside, was running through this gigantic tree on the ground and explained to him how the lightning just kind of just literally right here, boom.
Yeah.
So we have this great YouTube show called House of Commons Show. You should subscribe to that on YouTube by searching the words House of Commons Show. When you get there, like and subscribe to the channel, and then also share that channel with your friends so that they know how great the stuff is.
We'll link it in the show notes, and make sure it's the House of Common, not the House of Commons.
Yeah.
Because that's another show that's not quite as interesting.
Well, I mean, if you really want to learn about UK Parliament, you can.
Yes.
Or you can hang out with me and my 9 buddies because we have a really good time together. Tell
me about your 9 buddies.
So I'll never compliment them to their faces, but I will do that since they're not here.
And they don't watch stuff like this.
No, they will now because they'll see me on it to find out if I talk about them or not. So now they'll hate watch it because of me.
Okay.
But then you might get 9 subscribers to it. So there you go.
True.
So it's a work. True. So we are 9 of us. 9 of us. We have all known each other for give or take 10, 11 years of ministry life together. Mm-hmm. And then one of us, Jason. He's an American who has felt the call to plant a church in Toronto.
Yeah, comes from Buffalo.
Right?
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. He's from Pittsburgh.
Oh, from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Oh, but he was in Buffalo.
Yes, yeah. And so now he's out here, and so he's kind of got grafted into the network of guys, and there's 9 of us who, from different parts of Ontario. Have just kind of all melded together. Andrew Jones, who is Papa Jones to us, he's he's our Trojan horse. We feel like we can have the most controversial conversations, but if Andrew's in the room, then it kind of gives a levity of maturity that we wouldn't be able to handle. That people wouldn't be able to handle it if we were just having ourselves. But Andrew there at least gives you credit to at least say I'll at least check this out, because if Andrew's there, then it's probably credible. And then we've been in this group chat for a better part of 6 months, I would say. Mm-hmm. My buddy Stefan Watson, who was once a former student of mine at Agincourt, I was his youth pastor. He's now a youth pastor in Stouffville, Ontario. He created this group chat for 11 of us, and so it started really slow, and then a meme got shared, and then suddenly we were talking every day. And I mean that's not an exaggeration. We talk. At some point, there's a conversation happening all the time. And the conversations range from what's happening in the church world, to what's happening in pop culture, to what's happening in our family life, to something that we can be praying for, to praise reports, everything that you would have in a normal friendship is what is happening on this group chat. Yeah. And so we have this thing, and it's really entertaining. It's a lot of fun, and it's one of those things where you hate missing a conversation. And we joke around about how you put down your phone and then you miss 200 messages that were all of a conversation between the guys. And then Adam Hoskins, pastor at Sanctus Church in Ajax, he one day said we should make a show of this, and he proposed. We got into his group, the Zoom chat, and he's like, "Guys, I have a proposition for you. Here's something that we can do," and he presents the vision of this show. And so we walk it through together, and And I remember being the one, because I remember, so we're 10 black guys, 10 guys in ministry. We're different in our upbringing, different in our story, but we have these commonalities that kind of join us together. And I remember saying, guys, like, if we're going to do this, then we have to have each other's back. Because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're the lone voice on a topic, and then you get roasted for it on either side. You either become a messiah or a martyr. There's no.
You want that? You just got to get married, right?
Exactly. You already have that in your home. Why add that? Add that
that's
stress,
it.
Right?
Yeah.
That I love you, Rebecca. I don't agree with anything that
And
you just said.
I love you too, Marcia.
There you go. There you just like and saved. Right.
We can take that out and post mix, right? We can edit. Okay.
And so I said to the guys, I'm not wanting to be somebody who makes a comment about being black and in culture, being black and in ministry, and then feel like I'm, on my own when I have to take. If we're going to be in this, if we're in this together, and if we're literally one of those like all for one and one for all, then let's do this. And everybody bought in, from Andrew, who was the oldest, to O'Shea at OneChurch.to, who was the youngest, and everybody in between. And we all sort of bought into it. And so we filmed a pilot on Zoom, and we just laughed the entire time. It was like a long,
the pilot, it was,
right, it was we just had such a great time just laughing at each other, and and Adam does the roll call, and Kareem interrupts him in the middle of the roll call, and then we spend more time laughing at Kareem than we actually do doing the roll call.
Yeah.
And that's just sort of us in general. And originally the show was just kind of like, there's so many topics that we can talk to from the black experience. And because there's questions that we might get from different people, there's ideas or thoughts. Some people, what do you think? Well, what would it look like if 10 of us who disagree on almost everything, what would it look like if we talked about these issues to show that, one, there is not one way to be a black man.
Right.
There's not one way to be a black man who happens to be a Christian, or a Christian who happens to be black, depending on what order you want to put that in. There's not one way to see the world. There are varying degrees. We are not a monolith. We are each unique individuals.
Yeah.
What would that look like if we actually made a show about that? So Stefan's view might be different than Calvin's view. But at the end of the day, if Calvin says, Stefan, I need you, Stefan's dropping everything to go help Calvin out.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
It's a big table that you've set with the show.
And I would add to that, Kevin, it's a big table that we built. Because a lot of it really stemmed from like, and you can humbug things if you really want to. But we were like, there's not a space for our voices,
right?
Like we are in our world that we share. Like it's a lot of graduated voices. It ends up being very similar voices, right? And then you have your outliers here and there who do some really creative things, right? But for the most part, right, like it's the same sort of voices. Yeah. And then when it comes to voices that are different, there's always one singular voice, and that voice represents a demographic of people.
Yeah, this is the world of sound bites, not conversations.
Yes. Yeah. And so we decided, like, what would it look like if we just built our own table? Yeah. And we just invited people to come. We invited people to come to like, if you're going to come and hang out with us, this is what hanging out with us is like. It's loud. It's chaotic. It's like Thanksgiving dinner.
And the spirit hovers over the chaos.
Yes, like over the deep. Yes, over the deep of.
Well, it's not always that deep.
Yeah, no, it's not. Sometimes it's really frivolous conversations, but that's real life, right? Like it's a balance between, and like we started the show, and I we have these pilot episodes and these pilot segments, and they're really fun, and then Ahmaud Arbery happens. Yeah, and really, that's the beginning. This is the beginning stage of this protest movement that's been happening, at least at the time of recording this podcast. Like the shift, and so we have this 3-part conversation about our feelings on that, and normally we'd have one fun segment, and we're like, no, let's just talk this out because people are talking about it themselves, and then we're able to shift back to NBA and this and that, and then George Floyd takes place. Yeah. And the protests take place, and the conversations about defunding police take place, and the infamous rise, I'll use those words specifically, the infamous rise of Black Lives Matter, because some people will look at it as an infamous movement, and others, like, it's just this weird thing. And we are uniquely placed because we built this table just for us. Right. We are uniquely then placed to actually voice our opinions on this. Not fact, though we will use facts, and we all kind of fact check each other. It's like
Well, you're taking, again, using the lightning rod metaphor, you're taking the power of destructive voice and
distilling it,
bringing it to the table, and letting a conversation happen that doesn't blow the whole thing apart.
And I think there's value in that illustration, because a lot of the things are happening in our world now, and I don't see it like, if you're listening to this in November, there's going to be an American election. Now, we're in Canada.
Yeah.
Why does that mean so much to us? I don't know, but it does.
Yeah.
But there's so much room for divisive. And we go and go, what's an angle on this that no one's talking about? And how can we talk about this and then lead out of hope? Leave people with hope at the end of it.
Yeah.
And allow ourselves to have the room to disagree.
Right.
Allow ourselves to have the room to disagree on how we each feel about policing, how we feel about movements of our day, how we feel about protesting, and how we feel about LeBron James versus Michael Jordan, and how we feel about Michael Jackson and Prince, and how we feel about Beyonce and Mariah. All of these things encompass all of life.
Yeah.
All these conversations, not just one of them, but all of them, because all of us have these conversations all the time. And so we've been able to be 10 voices, not just one voice. And everyone was saying earlier, because of how we become a boy band, and everybody has people have their favorites. I really, really, really appreciated Andrew's topic on how he handling worship in church. I feel he's just so wise in his words. That's why we call him Dad, because he's just so wise that way. And then others the way Kareem spoke about that, I really, really, really appreciate his wisdom. I don't appreciate what Chris Chase said. He sounded really rude, and I'm like, exactly, you're welcome. Sure. But that's what we get to do, and we get to create a space where guys who are older, like Andrew and myself, get to make room for guys like Tim or O'Shea or Stefan, who are creating, who are building their voices,
right? And
we get to bring them along in stuff. So it's a really cool brotherhood.
The opportunity to have a semi-guided redemptive conversation. There's such a dearth of that, a lack of that in our culture.
Look at Facebook, dude.
Yeah,
we were talking about that earlier. It's just a weird place where we are fighting for things that that should be conversations.
I think we need more lightning rods.
We do. We need to stop. We need to have these moments where we stop and just really consider not just what's being said and try to find a link to it, but why am I getting angry?
Why are we so influenced by the fringes? And Jordan Peterson says that. Now I just lost half of my audience.
Trigger word,
Jordan Peterson. But he says that, he says about 15% of the North American population are either the extreme left or the extreme right, and 7 or 8% on the far left, 7 or 8% on the far right, and yet so much of the conversation is all in response to those extremes.
Yeah.
And the conversation that needs to happen with the other 85% who may lean towards the left, may lean towards the right, but where is the centrist conversation? And I think that's what the House of Commons show is. I think it's a centrist conversation that draws from the left and the right and says, but here we are in the middle.
Yeah. And it's the muddy middle. It's the gross middle. It's the uncomfortable middle. But that's where growth happens.
Yeah.
That's where maturity happens. It happens when you actually take all the information and go, so where do we go from here? And not spend our time going, well, this is what it is and that's it. There's certain issues, obviously, that are, no pun intended, black and white. Mm-hmm. But a lot of what's happening in our world, the conversation is gray. Mm-hmm. And so because it's gray, we then have to kind of find ourselves in it through it. And the only way we do that is together. But, you know, we do a lot of typing. Typing, sending one, like, I showed them. Oh, I didn't use that Google link. Dang it. And as opposed to actually sitting down. So what it does to the show is it forces all of us to really go back and go like, why do I think that? Why am I angry?
Yeah, I think if Jesus was doing a social media seminar, he would say, be slow to type, be quick to read.
Oh my, yeah.
And and slow down your anger cycle.
Yeah.
Stop blowing up. Just
you
cool
know,
it.
Just
step away.
Take a walk.
Yeah.
You know, and ask yourselves questions like why, you know, to use the word trigger, like why am I triggered by this?
Yeah.
Like if you're not talking about me, like if you're not talking about Chris Chase, like in a negative way, then why am I getting angry like you are? What am I getting angry about? And have I dealt with that reason for my anger at that moment? Because we can't be lightning rods in our world if we don't know how to be lightning rods within ourselves. We can't.
Right. You can't contain that fury.
Yeah.
You have to be able to receive it and diffuse it.
You have
let
to
it go.
And especially if we were living in a world that's void of leadership, like really, really good, healthy, sustainable leadership. And I'm talking about from a pulpit. I'm just talking about from neighborhoods. Talking about just people around. Like we are void of it.
Yeah.
And we can't be that if we are shooting the lightning right back where it came from.
Right.
And making a bit, and we're destroying trees essentially.
Yeah.
But that's what's happening, and so our show has this uncanny ability, and people can receive it however they want. But we at least have the opportunity among ourselves to diffuse each other. Right? So like we joke around, like Jonesy will say like, you're done, like as only a dad, you're done, right?
I've seen him do that.
Right? Like, you're done, and his big eyes are done. It's normally towards Calvin, or either towards Calvin or towards Stefan, one of the two.
Well, they deserve it.
Yeah,
right?
oftentimes, right? But what it does is like we allow each other the room to be wrong, and we allow each other the grace to move towards being right, not left or right, but just being right together, and finding it, recognizing that being right is a journey, because the world constantly is changing.
Yeah.
Right? And we realize quickly that like we can't try to find statistics just to back up our biases.
Right.
We have to spend time asking the question, why do we have the bias to begin with?
Right.
Where did the bias come from? Is this bias scriptural, if I can use that word? Like, is this bias that like literally spirit led, or is this bias just because whatever? Like, I have a bias about Kobe Bryant being one of my favorite. He's my favorite basketball player. He's better than LeBron James. He's not better than LeBron James. He's not. Statistically, he's not. But he's my favorite, so I have this bias. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you tell me, even with the statistics in front of me, you're wrong. But I know that I'm wrong. I recognize the how comical it is that I am wrong.
Wasn't there one of the guys in the house that plays basketball?
Adam Hoskins. Adam Hoskins.
I heard about him. Yeah.
He was born with a basketball in his hand, literally, and he decided at the tender age of 19 to say, "I'm going to forego this career to go into ministry." It's a beautiful story. You should check it out on the House of Commons show.
Wow.
I razz him about that all the time. As a poor Adam.
You mentioned about leadership, and I know that's a theme that you've given your life to. You've been giving your life to help leaders develop. So, what kind of leader do we need today? And let's contextualize for a minute. What kind of leader do we need in our church and in our community?
The more I look at, if Facebook is an indication of what sort of leader we need, there's certain moments where like I don't know if we're leading. It feels more like we're being led. feels more like we're being led by whatever our favorite news is, whatever our favorite speaker is saying, based on what the news that they're reading. And meanwhile, there are people who are hurting.
Yeah.
I have neighbors around me who love God but do not see the value of church.
Yeah.
They just don't see the value in it. Why would I go there if I?
It's a great question.
Right? Like,
why would anyone go to
right?
church?
Why even bother? Like all you guys do is argue. Like all you do is this or that. You know. You guys can't seem to agree on anything. And I look at the life of Jesus. And Jesus knew the difference between somebody asking him a question because they wanted to know something and somebody asking him a question because they wanted to trigger a conversation.
Right.
He was able to see their hearts, and he would always respond to the depth of them, not to the surface question that they were asking.
Right.
The result of that is they thought to murder him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Like he, in his revealing of who they were, it just made them angrier. But we need leaders who are willing to actually really walk in discernment. And I know that's such an older word.
What do you mean by discernment?
When I say discernment, what I mean by that is the ability to see beyond just the surface.
Right.
To see the real heart of a person.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's going to be somebody who's going to say a comment that's really angering. Discernment is asking the question, why? Why would they say that?
First of all, why am I angry?
Why am I angry? And why would they? Yeah,
say
like
that?
why is this stirring something in me?
Yeah.
Is this righteous? Is this table turning in the temple anger, or is this anger because I'm just angry?
Yeah.
Is this zeal for the house of the Lord and for his statutes and who He is, or is this because I just feel like I'm being pigeonholed and stereotyped and all this sort of stuff?
Right.
And then going, okay, so, and then asking, okay, why are they? We need leaders who ask more of the why before they show the how. A lot of leaders, a lot of us are really good at the how. Here's how you have a better marriage. Here's how you save your money. Here's how you speak. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. A lot of us aren't asking the questions, why are people feeling this way? Why are they hurt? So you go back to, at the time of recording, they've slowed down a little bit, but they're still happening in certain spaces. Protests about for Black Lives Matter, the movement statement, however you want to describe it, police brutality, things like that. And a lot of the conversation has gone, is about rioting and this sort of stuff. And a lot of people aren't asking the question, so why are they protesting? Why are people hurting? Why are people hurt?
Yeah.
And actually really sitting down with people who have been hurt and going like, tell me your story.
Never mind the politics. What's really going on?
Yeah, what's really going on? Let's put if there's no left, right, centrist, progressive thing in the mix, why are you crying? Why are you hurt? And then not explaining away the hurt. Like we used to do that to women. Oh. In our day and age, we used to do it to women all the time. Well, okay, you're hurt. Okay, but you're not really hurt. Boys will be boys. Yeah. Boys will be boys. Just let it go. Yeah. Just do this, do that. Just let it. And now we realize, oh no, we can't do that. And the pendulum has swung so far that now you have to be extra careful. Yeah. Because we didn't listen to the beginning. If we just sat down with people and go like, so why are you hurt? Not because of, and not sharing an article why you shouldn't be hurt. Right. Not sharing a book on why you shouldn't be hurt, but literally sitting down with people and going like, and empathizing. Jesus knew how to do that. Jesus would sit down with the broken, the destitute, and he would sit with them and talk with them. He treated them like human beings. They weren't statistics to him. We need more leaders like that who are led by, I said earlier, the Lamb's agenda, not the agenda of a party. Right. In Canada, from a NDP, Green, Liberal, like in the fringe ones on the other sides, like not led by that, but led by the agenda of the Lamb, who knew when to be conservative. Just use that term, right? And who knew when to love the one who knew when. That's the discernment part. He knew when. Right. He knew when. And we need leaders who are paying attention to the world around them and seeing the opportunity to to be a part of leading people to the answer that is Jesus. It means rolling our sleeves. It means being willing to get mud thrown on us a little bit. It means sometimes being misunderstood and asking for forgiveness because we lead out of our ignorances. We lead out of what we know to be real and what we've always known. But I think the last 3 or 4 years of my life have just been, for me at least as a leader, have grown because I've been willing to, when I'm wrong, you're not going to hear a word from me. Outside of I'm sorry, how can I do better?
Yeah.
And if I'm right, I can jokingly with my buddies be like, but on a real level, I'm not going to brag about it.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing to gain there. So leaders who start with the why. Why is this happening around us? If you're in a church and there's no young adults, you're not blaming somebody. You're simply going, so where did the young adults go? And why aren't they coming? And you're allowing people who left to say some really hurtful things out of their hearts about not necessarily you, but about the circumstance that you're a part of. And you take it. You take it, and then you distill that lightning rod. You distill that, and you diffuse it to go, this is what we do next.
Yeah.
As opposed to going like, well, it's probably their fault.
Yeah.
No, there's always blame on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Jesus is high and lifted up and becomes our lightning rod, doesn't he? He unfortunately, we have put him in that place in some respects where we put him to be that, and as opposed to us kind of like taking that place and being like, that's what you've asked us to be now in our society. Yeah, be a lightning rod.
Right? And to take the the ugliness of our world and help people understand it.
So we live in a world that's angry and confused and everybody has a loud voice now. And we're dealing with all kinds of people being worried about litigation, worried about public shaming.
Right.
And yet there's a call for us to live fearless in this world, like lambs before wolves, to be as gentle as a dove, as wise as a serpent.
Yeah.
And so this is July 2020, and right now you're in transition. You don't know what's coming next. But this is, I think that what little I know of you and have gotten to know of you in this conversation, that you're called to be like Jesus. You're called to be a lightning rod.
I feel like, so when I transitioned from the school, I was talking with my former boss. My former boss, now my friend, again, always been Rich James, and we were saying like how if I had been in the position that I was in before all this sort of stuff happened, I would have been able to be the leader that I've been recently.
Right.
Because there's so many things you have to worry about. Like if you say this, then this could hurt funding, or somebody could say this and say that. Whereas now there's a freedom to be able, for the most part, obviously there's wisdom involved, but there's a freedom for the most part to be able to speak where people wouldn't speak, to share where people wouldn't share, and to do that with respect. And I think that there is you go back to the discernment part and the lightning round part, is you don't just say something to trigger somebody.
Right.
Like there's some people.
Well, sometimes you do.
Sometimes, right? Like
sometimes it's fun,
right? Like sometimes it's like watch this and send. But for the most part, like to be well thought and to engage people, and to engage people and to go like, why do you think this? And to ask questions. And when I write something or when I share something on the show, that I'm doing it because I'm learning and I'm saying this is what I've learned and this is how this could help you. And if I was in a different environment right now in this day and age, I would not be able to do that, and that would only add to frustration. That would add to feeling quieted, the feeling like there wasn't a table. Right. And I feel like I sometimes you play the card that you're dealt. That's if you play cards. I recognize there's some people who are like you lost people for Jordan Peterson. You also lost person because I mentioned cards. So like there you go.
Yeah.
Viewership. All time.
Let's redeem this conversation. It's Uno.
Uno, yes,
Yeah.
it's Uno. It's
Dutch
Uno.
Blitz. There we go.
It's a euchre.
Okay, we're back. Welcome back.
There you go. And for those of you who were listening before the commercial, like it's the ability to speak with love, and Jesus did that, but he also spoke fearlessly. Mm-hmm. He
Those two go together, and we haven't figured
that
out.
We haven't figured out that you can be loving and fearless at the same time. We haven't figured out. We were like, either you're fearless and you're mean and you're divisive, or you're loving and you're so graceful that you're suddenly like on the other end of the. No, you can be both truth and grace. Grace and truth. They mirror. They're married together. Yeah. And
you may be slow to speak, but sooner or later you got to speak.
And when you do that because you've been slow, because you've been listening, because you've been paying attention. There's one of the guys I used to work with, Luch Lombardi. He was he would sit in meetings, and you can just watch him quietly. And then there's people like me who like, blah, 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 and he just sit there, and then so that when he spoke, everybody was like, oh shoot, that's facts right there, because he sat in it. Yeah. He sat in it for long enough that he paid attention to it. Yeah. And so for me, I think that I'm learning that there's a value in being slow to speak, but at some point you gotta say something, and you might only have one shot. To quote, at the time now, the musical Hamilton is the biggest thing in the world right now. Like, you don't want to throw away your shot. You have one shot to be able to speak that truth there, because you don't want to spend the rest of your day going through all your corrections on your Facebook page or your Twitter or your Instagram. Mm-hmm. You have one shot to get it as right as possible, because it'll never be perfect. So using that and leading together and inviting people. The word I've been using a lot is shoulder to shoulder. Mm-hmm. We do this together. It's not, when I walk with the guys, it's not me. It's the House of Common. We lead shoulder to shoulder together. Right. When we're in these conversations about race, or when we're in conversations about financial disparity or poverty, we stand shoulder to shoulder. It can't just be, well, you guys handle poverty, we'll handle race, you guys handle gender, and group project on 3, break. No, we're all in these things together. We might have louder voices in different points, but we're all in these things together, and that's how we move forward. And I'll add, see, now I'm talking a lot, passionate about this. What ends up happening too is, what you end up finding is the louder voices that are on the wrong side of history, they stand out more. Yeah. They stand out a lot more, and you're able to actually, and you can't do that under the guise of Jesus. Right. Because it doesn't compute. How you're talking does not compute with the grace and truth of God. Because the grace part would say, I know this is hurtful. I can be truthful with my kids and say, you did this wrong, and still be graceful that I'm saying it to them while I'm hugging them. Yeah. I can do that. Yeah. Sometimes I don't want to. That's the catch. But that's the responsibility of leadership. Yeah. Is adding the grace when all you want to give is truth. Right. It's adding the love when all you want to be is fearless. That's what leadership is. It's that marriage of the two.
Come, Lord Jesus.
Oh, even so, Lord. Even so, Lord.
Chris, this has been just fascinating sitting and getting to know you, and I love your mind, I love your passion, and looking forward to doing this again sometime.
And we didn't even talk about our beards, so we have to do this next time.
Oh, well, that could be a two-part series.
Two-part series, because it could be. Yeah. The beards are glorious on this episode. The beards are glorious
dripping
on this
podcast.
Dripping with oil. Hallelujah.
And we're done.
We did it.
Well, there you have it, an introduction to Chris Chase. What a great guy. I like that guy. On our next episode, December 15th, we're going to be listening to a session that was recorded with Michael Krause. Michael has spent decades in urban ministry in the Toronto area, including time that he was with Yonge Street Mission. Currently, he is involved at Tyndale University, and he's going to be sharing about trends of the urban Christian. And so that's going to be a very insightful session that was recorded at the Our City Toronto conference in 2019. And though some time has passed since it was recorded, the material is still very relevant. Also, as we're coming to the end of 2020, if you go to our Facebook page, Sidewalk Skyline Podcast, we're going to have a contest, and we're going to have a list of all of the episodes that we had during this year. And we want you to take a guess at what you think the top 3 most listened to episodes were. If you can get the top 3 in any order, the first person to do that is going to win a $25 gift card to the coffee provider of your choice. If you are able to guess the top 3 in order, the most listened, second most listened, third most listened, and you get that right, well, then we'll double the bonus. We'll give you a $50 card for the coffee of your choice. So go over to our Facebook page, and you'll see the list there, and then you can enter your guess, and then we will announce the winner for that on our January 1st podcast. We got a whole new season coming up. Hope that you're going to be a part of that. If you haven't already, go to your platform in which you listen to podcasts and hit subscribe. And as always, if you leave comments, that helps to get us into circulation so that more people will discover and hear about Sidewalk Skyline Podcast. Well, until the next episode, next time we're here, I'm Kevin Rogers. Keep one ear to God and another ear to the streets in your city. I'm Kevin Rogers, and this is Sidewalk Skyline Podcast.